Gee, welcome back to Liberty Virtual Solutions. We are presenting our podcast called Marketing Mindset Mastery Radio Show. I am your host, Marie Mason, and our lovely and talented co-host Cheryl Bernstein is on break for for our Thanksgiving episode. Um, we have been talking with Stephen Webb today, and he is an amazing and talented young man, and I would love to hear more about his topic about finding stillness on the storm. And let's, Stephen, are you back?
I
So,
am here, yes.
how are you doing? Take it away. So, we were talking about something specific, and I wanted to expand on that. Could you? And I'm sorry if I temporarily forgot what it was, but hopefully you remember what it was. Can you just expand a little bit about our topic? Because you had some really good points with letting go and so forth. I think it was related to that.
Yeah, we were talking about the difference between trying to force things to trying to force letting go of things and just accepting the situation in the moment. And talking about like exercises we can do. And one of the things I learned about with meditation is, or we could even forget the word meditation because a lot of people think, well, I can't meditate because I can't silence my mind. Um, well, one of the things that's really beneficial is having a positive mindset. And
Mhm.
everybody loves a positive mindset. And very often in my life, I've looked at someone and said, well, just think positive. But it's easy for positive thinkers. You know, there's a certain group of people that just seem to see the positive in everything. Here's the thing, you cannot turn a negative thought into a positive. Once a thought arrives, just the same as the situation, just the same as the storm. Once it's here, it's here. Once you have a thought, it's a thought. So
Okay,
so
awesome.
what um once you have a thought, it's already there. You cannot physically turn that into a positive thought. So one of the exercises I do is that I sit down and I do it with my clients. And that is we just go through what thoughts are coming into their mind and we label them as a positive or a negative, upbeat or not so upbeat, or give them another name if they're not necessarily obviously a positive or negative.
Think of Winnie the Pooh characters. Sometimes you have the Eeyores that say, "Woe is me." Then
Yeah.
you have the jolly, lucky-go-lucky ones like Winnie
Uh,
the Pooh. That kind of
yeah.
characters. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. And sometimes we might see a negative thought as it's just a protecting thought. It's not necessarily a negative thought. We need them equally. And it's the negative thoughts that keep us safe. So it's not a matter of just having a positive mindset. But what we can do is if we think of thoughts as trains, they're going to come anyway. And you see where I'm going, train of thoughts here.
yep.
But the thoughts are going to come. Now then, your listeners, and you could do this now, Marie.
Okay.
If you sit here and you say to your mind, um, give me all your thoughts and I will just listen and wait for them. So if you do that right now, say, right, give me all your thoughts and just wait for them.
Okay.
You have an almost blank mind for a moment. There's
I
no
was
thoughts.
wondering. I thought that was just me.
No, it seems like all the thoughts disappear for a moment.
Okay. So yeah.
So you have this wonderful
Yeah.
moment of blankness, of just pure awareness of waiting for thoughts. But the thoughts will come in about a second and a half, maybe three if you're really lucky. Then you can go what type of thought it is, and you can label it. But you can also go one further. You can just by labeling it instead of going with it and getting on it, you can choose to go right. Well, I don't want many of those thoughts, so I'm just going to ignore that thought and wait for the next one. So you can get on the thought or get off the thought. It's totally up to you. And just by doing the exercise of sitting down for a couple of minutes a day and going and watching the thoughts come and choosing what to do with them, what you're actually doing, because you're not in control of your subconscious mind. You can influence your subconscious mind, but you're not in control of it. So you influence your subconscious mind by giving weight to thoughts. So i- if you tend to think in a negative way about a certain thing and it creates a lot of emotion, your subconscious mind takes notice. Just the same as a child, if it's going to be screaming and shouting at you at the same time, you take more notice of that than if they're quietly talking to you. So if we give when our subconscious mind gives us a thought, if we give it a lot of emotion, our subconscious mind takes notice and it'll try to give you more of them. Our subconscious mind doesn't have a preference of positive, negative, protecting, happy, desire thoughts. It just gives you thoughts that you want. Um, so we train our subconscious mind to give us the thoughts that we give good feeling to. So if we have a thought that I like that, give a good feeling to it. If we have a thought that we don't like, just accept it and allow it to carry on. And then eventually you're training your subconscious mind to give you the thoughts that you want. We can only influence them. And that's one of the things we can use this type of meditation to, you recognize the thoughts and you recognize them as a transient nature. They come and go. How many times have you thought of a brilliant idea? It's like, it's going to change the world. It's going to be an amazing idea. And you think it's so good, I don't need to write that down. 4 minutes later,
And
it's
you forget
gone.
it later.
And it was the
I have
most
been down there. That's
amazing
why
thought.
I have stacks of notebooks, no joke, around my
Uh,
house because I have to write everything down, and I'm filling up Google Docs now and other things because I wanna make sure I don't forget. Now,
yeah,
remembering where I put them, that's a different story,
I know.
but at least they're written down.
But that's the thing. Thoughts
Have
only persist if we give them weight and we give them, and just the same as when I found myself single, or you find yourself in a lot of debt, or you find yourself in a certain situation, or you find yourself rolling in money, whatever the situation, if you give those thoughts lots of feeling, you will get a lot more of them. And that's a simple way we can use meditation to not become, you don't want to become a meditator in a cave with no thoughts and just a peaceful life. And it's not about that. It's about recognizing what's going on inside of us and having that inner control, because knowing ourselves is the greatest of all wisdoms. And anybody can
being aware
point
of
out,
ourselves.
yeah, being aware of
Is
what's
that being
going
aware
on.
of ourselves? Yeah.
Yeah, being aware
Now
of what's
that's
going
being
on
aware of
inside.
inside. Now, does that include, like, our health and our mind and our as well as our thoughts and so forth?
Yeah,
Is it
yeah. With the health of the body, it's kind of strange because I don't feel anything from just below my neck, but I have to really listen to my body. When I eat certain things and when you're doing certain things, you have to really listen. How does that affect you? When I eat that, how tired am I feeling? Being diabetic and things like that, you have to really be aware of these things. Then nowadays we can just, the body complains, we feel ill, we throw some drugs down, but really if we just listen to our bodies and goes, well, how does that affect me? Your body will tell you. When your body's tired, when your body cannot sleep, it's telling you something. It just cannot spell it out in the same language as the doctor can. But it's telling you, please don't eat that again. Please don't do that. Do more of that. So when we feel good, what did we do for the last 12 hours that made us feel good? When we had more energy, when I slept well last night, what did I do last night to sleep well? It's knowing ourselves, and then that turns from unhealthy control, trying to control the world, to healthy control, trying to controlling ourselves. And it goes back to, at the beginning of the show, we were talking about visiting friends now over Christmas period.
mhm,
It's, you can have all the wisdom, you can have all the self-help books, you can be as stoic as you want. You go and sit around that table at Christmas Day, and you got the brother and sister, you got the auntie and the uncle, and you got someone that knows how to push your buttons.
oh, yeah. Usually
And,
there's one
and
person that always does.
they know how to push buttons, and we're so affected by it. And not to make it political, politics this year around the Christmas table is going to be
Mm,
huge. So
yes.
So, and the difference of opinions, going back to the accepting, go, well, I have my opinion and it's my opinion and that's fine. For me to have mine, they can have theirs.
Right.
So again, it's that acceptance of differences. And it's acceptance, well, they're going to push my buttons. What is this moment? Maybe this moment is here to see how stoic I am or to
Mhm.
see how peaceful I am. What a brilliant opportunity for showing how
To
much I've worked on
demonstrate.
myself.
And you can demonstrate that for them, and they can maybe
Yeah,
pick up on that and learn from you, and hopefully that will carry on into their lives.
yeah. I had a
I think
wonderful experience a couple of years ago. My daughter came in. I cannot remember why now, but I lost it. It was about 2 years ago, and she came in and she said something, and I cannot even remember what it was about. It was probably something really, and I just shouted at her for about like it felt like 10 minutes, but it's probably about 30 seconds. And she stood there and she took it, and she took it, and then she said at the end, she goes, "Well, that was very Zen-like, wasn't it?" And it was just a wonderful mirror, and I just laughed, and I was like, "Oh, thank you." And it was
for the
lovely because
reminder.
she recognized the work I was doing and also recognized that we mess up.
Yes, we're not perfect.
No, no,
We're human. We can mess up and it's okay. It's
yeah,
I always tell my son, it says failure is not fatal. Just learn from it.
no,
And I've been saying that on shows previous to this, but I can't emphasize that enough. Failure is just a stepping stone to success in your life. And you just have to learn to kind of learn from the mistakes you make, and people may not see the work that's going on when you touched about being on the working on the inside of you. That's brilliant because people don't always see the work's going on inside of you. They only
no,
see the surface of what you show, and sometimes you may repeat some of those mistakes, but it's all part of the learning process. And people just need to learn to be compassionate. So
yeah,
yeah. So yeah, and just understand that you're just working through that process. It does not happen overnight. And in a
yeah,
world of instant gratification, I'm reminding people that when you're working on the inside of you, whether it's through meditation or whatever you decide to use to help you get there, remember it's not overnight. I mean, I'm sure it didn't take you overnight to get to this
no.
understanding of your own self and forgiveness and grace. So, I mean, maybe you could elaborate a little bit about the compassion part of it.
And and you say about it doesn't happen overnight, and it's not there now. It's not always there. I have to really sometimes, you give me a headache, you give me a tired day, you give me a night that's too warm and I can't sleep, and the
Hmm.
next day I got to work doubly hard not to argue back, and because family and the closest to us is always emotionally charged. We
Hmm.
feel they should know better.
Hmm.
They should know me better.
Hmm.
That's always an amazing thing when we get to the age of 35, 50, and we go on this discovering ourselves, yet we expect our family to know us really well.
You expect.
Yeah, yeah. And those expectations, we think we're allowed to fail,
Yeah,
but we don't like it if they fail. We
true.
don't like it if they say something wrong. Give them permission to mess up royally as well and be okay with that.
That's true.
If you give others permission to mess up, they'll give you permission to mess up as well. And progress is messy,
Hmm.
whether it's internally, whether it's countries, or whether everything humans have ever been through collectively. It's any progress is messy, and it's like the tide coming in. You get a brilliant book and the tide comes in or a wave comes in, and you think this is brilliant, amazing. And then over the next 2 months, the wave goes out a little bit. And you take that little 1% from the book and you think, I must read that book again. And then the wave comes in again, it goes in slightly further. That's progress. It's not linear. It takes its time. And we've
Small
only got
pockets of
to,
time, right?
yeah,
Small pockets of time. Yep.
it is. It really is 2 steps forward and 3 steps forward and 2 steps back. And, and it's just not pretty. Growth wasn't pretty, personal growth, and looking inside is not pretty. And one of the things that I've learned more than anything else is if something bothers me, it's it's something inside of me, not them. Because how can one person say something to me and yet a family member can say it and I'm affected?
Hmm.
So that means it's not what they said, because otherwise I'd be affected by everybody equally.
Yeah,
So it's inside. So if I'm triggered, you know, I think this is a really worthy story, and I think it's what's given me more freedom in my life and everything. Because that's what we want. We don't want more money. We don't want more, but we want more freedom.
that's right.
And
And freedom is some a lot of people place the emphasis of having financial income
mm,
and a larger amount to being having that freedom. But freedom isn't just about money. So I think you're going to dive into what that is. So,
freedom is the ability to be myself without fear.
yep,
Here I am, and if I fall down, I don't have to fear in front of you guys because I can fall down. I can say the wrong thing. And it's okay because that's what we all want.
yep.
We want the ability to mess up royally and still be loved. And that's why we want the ability to dance, even if it's bad. But one thing I learned, it was the same ex actually that um, pushed me to that, or text me that morning. She didn't know what she wanted. I'm good friends with her now. We're very close.
Good.
After I couldn't talk to her for about 2 years, I really had to stay away. But she said to me one day in the front room, um, she said, "Do you know? Can I say something honest with you?" And that's like, okay. I was expecting like, oh, she's going to say all sorts about the relationship and all that. And she said, "I think you're bitter about your accident." I was like, but I was like, I don't recognize the word bitter, but I was really triggered by it. It really like annoyed me. So I knew there was something there. And I sat with it and she said, "You're very quiet." I said, "Well, I think you're right, but I don't know why you're right." And over the coming days, I realized something. And as you know, I've just put out a fundraising to raise money for a new electric wheelchair, which my followers and everybody have funded. And I'm so excited about getting it before Christmas. So that's
So
incredible.
happy about that for you
Oh,
too. I
it's,
was
it's
like,
just amazing.
so
But
yeah.
but here's the thing. Everything I've done since my accident, I've tried to earn the help. Even with carers that are paid, I'm like, well, you don't have to do that for me. And when I needed a new wheelchair, I wanted to go and do something for businesses to get it sponsored. I wanted to. I didn't think I could just ask for it, and I realized one thing. I had a deep shame that I never seen in my life, and that deep shame was I. People look at me and go, "Well, I think you're a hero for what you do. You break your neck, you're severely paralyzed, you suffer from autonomic dysreflexia, which is like a life-threatening condition that's really not good. And but yet you're so happy in what you do and you don't let it bother you." And I'm like, I'm not your hero. And I never realized why I was so anti admitting that I'm disabled. And it was because I had a deep shame of that I broke my neck. I dived into a swimming pool and I climbed onto the wall. I walked to the deep end that night and I dived in. So I caused my disability. When I look at other people with disabilities, I think they were born like it. I think they deserve the help, and I always thought I didn't. So I had this deep shame for nearly 30 years of asking for help. I wouldn't go to disabled clubs. When I stood on the council, I wasn't standing up for disabled people because I almost didn't feel like I qualified to speak up for them because they've been through so much more than me. And that realization of I was the dumb person that done that night, but it isn't that people think that I'm worthy of help. It's because of how I dealt with it. So life isn't about what's happening right now and what happens to us or the dumb things we do. It's what we do with them.
Hmm.
And that's the same in business. That's the same in our lives. It's the same with a thought. It's the same with an emotion. Great, you're feeling lonely. What are you going to do with it? Great, you're feeling angry. What are you going to do with it? Now, then, anger is like a hammer. You can build a house or you can knock something down. It's everything in life. And it comes back to the stillness in the storms. Great, you're in a storm. What are you going to do with it? And that, what are you going to do with it, is the greatest advice you can have. If someone came to me when I was lying in bed with a trachea in my throat, um,
Sorry about this. We went a
just,
little
just
longer
cancel that.
today.
That was my mum on the phone. Um,
Well, tell
ju-
mama hi for all of us.
it's when I was lying in bed and someone came into me when I was 18 years old with a trachea in my throat when I couldn't speak, a halo, a metal brace around my head, and said to me, "Do you know what? You broke your neck. What are you going to do with it?" I might have felt like, just getting up and punching him at the time or whoever it was. But really, that's the greatest advice you can give anybody that's going through overwhelm, problems, or something. Because once it's here, you got to deal with it or not.
True.
And the suffering is when we don't deal with it. Suffering is not accepting it. Pain is inevitable. Pain, we're going to be hurt. We're going to fail. We're going to mess up. Suffering is a choice. So accept the situation, accept the thought, accept the feeling, accept that your family member around that table is going to say something wrong.
You just
And
have to give them
then
grace.
respond, give them grace. And that's where compassion is. Have compassion for not just the people around you that are struggling, have compassion for every thought that you have. Have compassion when a loneliness feeling comes up. Have that softness all the time for everything that appears. And this sounds wonderful. Don't get me wrong, I'm not there all the time. I'm there about 5 minutes of the day. But that's the ideal to live to. And it's not somewhere to get to, it's every moment. If you want to be wise and compassionate, don't flip the finger back at the driver that cuts you up. You don't know what he's going through.
Dang, it's like you were like seeing me when I was driving not long ago, and then someone was doing something really ridiculous, and
Yeah,
I just and it's so easy to change gears and want to sit there and give them the wrong thing and like flipping the finger, and I'm like, were you in the car when I did that? I'm just
I
teasing because I know
know.
you're like you're all the way in another country. There's no way,
I
but
know.
it's just
We all
like you
do
like
it.
read my mind.
Yeah. We all do it. We've all been late. We've all cut somebody up. We've all been both people.
Hmm.
Um, and wisdom, enlightenment is something people often think, I want to be enlightened and then my whole life will be rosy. No, the universe will still have just as much of the bad bucket for you when you're enlightened. But enlightened isn't something we can achieve. It's something we can be in any given moment. So if we can respond without flipping the finger, of understanding that that person is allowed to mess up too,
Yeah,
just like we are,
give them
that's
grace.
enlightened in a minute. Yeah, give them grace. I love that.
Yeah. So, no, that's a good point, and I think we all need to practice that, especially during the holiday seasons, but now more than ever. So, the 2020 has taught us, if anything, that we just need to give each other some grace and compassion. So,
Yeah,
that's a brilliant point. And we're actually winding down the show. We're kind of a little bit over, but hopefully, Rebel will be okay with that, and she can cut out some pieces to make it fit into a time frame. But literally, one last two last things, and then I got to close the show. And I am really enjoyed having you on the show. I hope you've been getting a lot out of it too. But um, how do you create? Can you like summarize how you can create a new habit? Because we all have habits that we've created, just like that are not useful for us, and we need to be able to let certain old habits go. So be able how do we create a new habit? Everyone tells us, well, you need to change this. How do you change it? Is there a formula or process that you go through to change a habit?
well, the good question to ask is, have I suffered enough? If you suffered enough from doing that current habit, you will change it. It's changing a habit that we don't really want to change. When I gave up smoking, it was because I decided that I wanted to give up smoking. And here's the thing: there's a difference between a decision and a choice. A decision is based on a set of few rules. I decide that ice cream because that's the one I like. A choice is from the heart, the body. And when we choose to change a habit, we don't really need to have any kind of written worksheet of how to do it. Apart from, I will give one hint: is make the habit or start the habit so small that you've got no excuse. So and only do one at a time. So if you want to get fit running, don't go running 20 miles on the first day. You won't go back.
Yeah, you'll be sore afterwards.
Yeah, but run to your gate and back, and do that for a week, and then run to the end of the road and back and do that for a week. The habit is more important than the amount you do.
So like incremental,
Yeah,
take incremental steps forward.
yeah.
It sounds like.
And if you're going to give up something, this is how I gave up cigarettes. Is I never gave up for life. I just gave up for 1 hour,
Ah,
and then after 1 hour, I said, "Well, I will have a cigarette in another hour if I want one," and then another hour, and then it stopped my mind going, "Oh, I can never have another cigarette again." But so to me, I hadn't actually given up. I was just 60 minutes away from having another cigarette. And then suddenly, years later, it's still, and it doesn't come up anymore.
oh, awesome.
But it's something like that. Just, if you want to give up a certain food or something, just don't eat it this meal. You cannot give up. You cannot give it up for 20 years. Excuse me. In that moment, you can only not eat it that one meal.
Right.
And we often look at habits as something for the next 10, 20 years. No, just now.
Yeah. My son, who is 14, going to be 15 in January of 2021. I'm sort of dating this particular episode, but that's okay. One of the things I have admired about my son was that he realized he had done something wrong and he wanted to fast because the Bible says to fast because we're Christians. Well, he mentioned to me that he wanted to fast for 3 days. And says, well, he wanted to give up eating food for 3 days. I'm thinking he's a 14-year-old boy, he's growing, and he really needs the nutrition because he's also learning and going to school. So I told him, I says, let's negotiate this one. So let's discuss this one and say, let's just keep it to just 1 day and then go back to eating the next day. And I explained to him, you're growing and you're learning and you need to keep the fuel going. And I don't think it was really intended for kids necessarily anyway. However, if you want to choose to do it, my husband and I talked to him about it and said, fasting does not have to be just food. You can also fast by giving up video games or something that you really enjoy doing just for a day or
Yeah.
a week or whatever it is the time frame. It doesn't have to always be food. So we gave that option to him. So if you decide to fast again in the future, think about maybe giving up something that you love doing like video games instead, just because food is part of essential. We need to have that fuel to keep moving. And I don't want him to hurt himself in the process of growing. So, luckily he
Yeah.
was willing to work with us on that. But yeah, and he did. He fine, and then he got all of it out of his system, and everything worked out fine, thankfully. But I mean, the point is, the lesson is that that has nothing to do with everything about meditation, but when you're going to, but it did have something, it did extend a little bit about what you had talked about just a moment ago. But we
Yeah.
actually have to get in the show, which is so sad because I love this and I hope you get to come back again. So I love having repeat guests, so because they're so much fun. All of my guests are fun, but it's always nice to have the repeat ones because we get to know each other and get to enjoy each other's company, and the audience absolutely loves it. So um and they usually ask me, can you bring this person on again? So last thing I want to ask is, do you have anything you want to share, whether it's your podcast link or a gift for the audience, and how can they connect with you, and then I'll close the show.
Yeah, then connect on my website, stephenwebb.com, spelled with a V. And just type into Google Stillness in the Storms podcast. It's
Oh,
on Spotify and iTunes. And most of the things I share, most of the things I give away, I normally mention in podcasts and all that. So I got some really exciting things happening in the next 4 weeks, actually. So
cool.
that's going to be,
You want to
um,
give us a preview?
well, yeah, I'm building a stillness circle. So,
Oh,
so, so it's like a website that will have videos and have other things and all that. And it's very similar to Facebook, but without the Facebook.
sweet. That sounds exciting. You'll have to reveal more of that later on. So,
Yeah.
that'd be awesome. Definitely let me know when it's launched, and then we can let our audience know too. So that's awesome. So thank you for that. So please make sure you go into Stephen and say the website again.
StephenWebb.com.
StephenWebb.com, and take advantage of some of his cool offers and listen to his podcast. I mean, Stephen actually is between Stephen Webb and Stephen Atchison, which is how I got to know you. The two of you helped me get into meditation, which prior to that nobody else did. So I want to thank you for that, by the way. So base and just make sure you take out advantage of his offers because he's an amazing person, and I just really hope that you guys enjoy this episode of Marketing Mindset Mastery. And I'm your host, Marie Mason. Cheryl Bernstein my co-host, will be returning on the next show in December. And you guys have a great Thanksgiving holidays and Christmas and other ones, because um, just remember to just be compassionate to others. That's what our message is today, is just be compassionate and understanding and give grace. So until next time, this is Marie Mason with my co-host Cheryl Bernstein, who will return next episode, saying bye for now from the Marketing Mindset Mastery. And thank you, our wonderful guest Stephen, for being here.